Sci-fi horror really boils down to a theme rather than anything specific to be afraid of, an umbrella genre. There are some very famous franchises like The Thing that contain the basic formula of sci-fi horror, with shape-shifting alien organisms and the paranoia that comes along with it really being the crux of the problem for most of the franchise's installments. Sci-fi can really define so many things, but I feel like you've probably heard all this before. Today we're going to look at some of the concepts that you can say for certain are sci-fi related. We're going to be trying to avoid things where the sci-fi is the setting for something more terrestrial, and more that sci-fi is the cause of the problem. Something that's almost a cliche at this point in the horror medium is how genetic experiments in science labs only really ever breed doom. And rarely for the intended targets, usually just for each other and for the creator. Unraveling the woolen ball of DNA to create superhumans, monstrosities, or just biological weapons is something done both deliberately and by accident. There's a saying that we shouldn't tamper with things we don't understand, but like so many scientists and people in the field, we can't help but push that boundary to bring about the next stage of life on Earth, no matter the cost. The Fly is really the quintessential example of just a science experiment gone horribly wrong, as brilliant scientist Seth Brundle uncovers a technology that could revolutionize travel as we know it, breaking down the human body into code and transporting it through wires before reconstructing it elsewhere. Teleportation. The technology was designed to be used to travel great distances and save time, space, and really make life inherently better as a result. But in an unfortunate test, a fly slips into the origin chamber with Brundle, and the two combine. Though, for a while, you'd never be able to tell. When you think about it, the idea of your DNA getting corrupted has so many possible outcomes that it's almost unfathomable. Whether a combination you can make of a human and a fly would have the positive or negative traits of either is also unfathomable. The scientific fact is that we have no idea what would happen in this scenario. The technology doesn't exist, and in its place we have the imagination we allow to run amok in the sci-fi horror medium. The film does a great job of building up tension near the start, with the immediate effects of the merging of the two being really unnoticeable. He emerges from the chamber and is visually totally fine. But the next time you see Seth, he's got marks on his face and seems to look ill. You watch as he himself peels off his own fingernail, seemingly by accident, and he marvels at it. His skin is changing. He's stronger. Strange hair-like growths appear on him. The transformation is undeniable. His behavior changes and the people around him react with the fear the situation calls for. Is this still a miracle or a curse? All he wanted to do was make something to benefit humanity, and teleportation is a very sophisticated goal that would undoubtedly have solved many mundane problems, but instead he destroyed himself, letting the science get in the way of reason, a reoccurring theme in the genre. Sci-fi is plagued with delusions of grandeur, that the perfect life form is just another experiment away. It reaches back to the time of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Though that was a gothic horror novel, its themes still follow science fiction, even if it predates them. Seth Brundle's DNA was corrupted, broken down by the teleportation chamber as he and the Fly merged into the same being. He as a monster wasn't created by design, but by circumstance. Both the Stalker games and the Metro series follow similar themes. They both have environments doused with heavy amounts of radiation, and other unknown forces converge to bring about new horrific creatures born of the forces at play. Metro shows you a bleak post-apocalyptic Russia where the human survivors cower in the darkened, irradiated Metro tunnels where the mutants and other life forms dwell, while Stalker has its exclusion zone, set in an alternate timeline where the Chernobyl reactor explosion led to a cordoned-off section of Ukraine that's rife with pockets of strange anomalies and bewildering wildlife. The origin stories are different, but the results are the same. Monsters. Stalker's mutants aren't claimed to be much more than that. Mutants. They have bizarre powers, from being able to psychically damage you, lift things with their mind, cause hallucinations, or just attack you on sight. They're not really regarded as anything special, just another hostile threat everyone in the zone must deal with, but their range and diversity is something fascinating. While some derive themselves from humans, other animals, and more dramatic abominations means that there could be no recognizable point of origin for some of these creatures. What were they once? What are they now? On the other hand, the mutants of the Metro have different tiers, the Metro Trash and the Dark Ones. The Tunnel Trash are all the results of heavy mutations from the nuclear aftermath, flying creatures with wings that resemble demons and gargoyles, rat-like beings that were once supposed to be human, but the Dark Ones are very different. Maybe the rumors are true, that the Dark Ones are the next step in the evolutionary ladder. It certainly feels like they could be, appearing in protagonist Artyom's visions as these alien-like creatures with a seemingly greater understanding of their newfound world and powers beyond comprehension. There is a primal fear that can be brought about by the statement that something will evolve and be smarter than us, better than us, and eventually no longer have need of us. And through the encounters you have with them in Metro 2033, it certainly becomes clear that they can definitely do things that you can't. Both of these really take place long after the event. Mutations can take tens to thousands of years to make a change on an individual or species, evolving to be different. It happens a lot in the real world, as a species over time will evolve to no longer need eyes or grow extra limbs. Though it's hard to imagine it happening to humanity, we all evolved from something. The catalyst for the last two was radiation. And we understand the risks of radiation nowadays, but what if it's not that? What if it's a power beyond that which we understand? Still Wakes the Deep follows Kaz McCleary, an electrician on a Scottish oil rig in the 1970s. As he's fired from his job, the rig drill strikes something unexpected and leads to a catastrophic disaster, setting in motion a series of terrible events that does unspeakable things to the crew and the ill-fated rig.
Apart! Find me inside!
Jesus. What is this stuff?
As you fight for survival for both you and your friends, you discover many of the twisted remains of people as you explore the wreckage, and watch as the environments are overgrown by this bizarre, almost alien plant life. It's strange. If you get too close to it, you see colour in the corners of the screen, as if it's affecting you by proximity. But actually seeing it work its horrors onto the crew is both unpleasant and deeply saddening. There's nothing more painful to think about losing control of your own mind. A harrowing scene from Alien shows the surviving crew members begging for death as they're dimly aware of what's going to happen to them. There's something growing inside them, and they would rather die than live to experience it reach its fruition. The unlucky ones from Still Wakes the Deep face a similar fate, taken over by something. There's still some part of them alive in the monsters you see, enough to share memories, enough to recall names, but not enough to stop themselves from hurting you. Like the hybrids of System Shock 2, the body and the mind are beyond the control of the hosts. They're vessels for a different pilot now. Their bodies transform into a lump of flesh in the vague shape of their former selves, bodies warped with tendrils growing out of them, totally alien, arguably human. A less dramatic but more sorrowful way to go is shown in Annihilation, where a group of scientists are led into the Shimmer, an area of the world characterized by the glowing, shimmering boundary. They walk in voluntarily and realize that, like the radiation of Stalker and Metro, their DNA is being broken down. They're degrading. The idea of another form of nature was spoken about before, sometime, somewhere, I feel, but the idea of a disease or accident leading to the sudden downfall of the human body is still somehow preferable to the slow and steady decline of identity failure as your body is manipulated and your identity absorbed by the environment. A girl turns into a tree, joining others in the area, vanishing forever, leaving behind some semblance of a human that no one could identify. Resident Evil has always been about genetics and the danger of meddling with them, with corporate entities performing shady experiments on people for military applications. It's almost always the cold and calculating, faceless corporations that bravely ask the questions no one person would ever want to take the blame for. What if you didn't need people to fight in a war? What if you could just turn the entire populace into mindless, unthinking zombies and have them turn on each other until there's no one left? The armies of a country turned inwards to try and deal with something they simply can't control. Resident Evil 2 and 3 follow the outbreak that occurs in the first game, where the original virus was released, but they go on a bigger scale. The virus has infected the public, and before long the entire town of Raccoon City is plagued with near unkillable zombies that infect others and create more zombies, like the multiplication of a virus. The zombie threat is shown to work in the same way as Night of the Living Dead. You get bitten, you turn into a zombie, and the only way to kill one is a shot through the brain or total destruction of the body, making them hard to kill and easy to find new targets. But the series continued to experiment outside the realms of the zombie. The Plagas in Resident Evil 4 shows more of a hostile takeover of a human, a parasite that used the host's body as a puppet, bursting out from the brainstem, a tangling barbed tendril with the host's eyes stuck on for good measure. By the time of Resident Evil 7, the form and shape of the danger was ever-changing, taking the identity of people and rebuilding them, morphing and changing them, reconstructing them like reshaping metal, and the only way to stop the infection was typically with a cure. Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare presents a bit of a generic story of light versus dark, with Shadow Island, where the games takes place, being perched over the gateway to what is meant to be another world that lurks below our own. The idea is that everything we see in our world is the world of light, and under that, in the bowels of the earth, is the world of darkness. Once the gate is opened by one of the Morton family members, the family that lives on the island, the creatures of darkness rise up, killing guests at dinner parties and leaking out into the wilderness. Various members of the Morton family take to science and try to understand these creatures, dissecting them to discover that they're more mineral and crystalline than anticipated, making them nothing like the biological creatures of our world, to finding out how they seemingly grow from the environments they spawn in. And whilst this is technically a respected scientific method for discovering new things from existing life forms, there's less logic in Alan Morton's plan to create the ultimate being by combining the remains of his dead father, who he himself killed, with the cells taken from the creatures of darkness. In a harrowing scene that bears little to no scientific reasoning beyond what if, you watch as he injects his father's lifeless corpse with the serums he's devised and revives him as a mindless monster. Re-Animator follows a similar premise. Based on the Lovecraft story, it follows Herbert West as he pushes what's considered the limits of death. When your brain dies, it's generally given 6 to 12 minutes of time as the window for your revival. And at least according to the film, reviving someone past that point is impossible or at very least foolish. However, West has devised a serum that allows the body to be brought back long afterwards, though the results are much the same as that of Alan Morton's father. The cat he brings back is feral, the humans are devoid of conscious thought and reasoning. It's life, technically, but not one worth living. The cliche of mad scientists is one that plagues sci-fi horror. Resident Evil scientists like William Birkin weren't mad or specifically evil, just vain and obsessed with their own goals of advancing their career. Whilst Birkin was assassinated by the company he worked for to prevent him from leaving, contractually obliged to make weapons for their employer until death do them part, but scientists like Dr. Frankenstein, Herbert West and Alan Morton do it to push the boundaries of what's possible, conquering death with sheer ambition, staving off the impossible by making something that's neither life nor death with disastrous consequences, of bending nature to their will. Nature is a strange thing, oh so familiar to us Earth natives with our singular Earth life perception on what is and what isn't natural. But on other worlds, even in our own solar system, the idea of a natural world where a single day lasts up to 176 of our own days, or even one with no solid ground to put our feet onto, is unfathomable. Something uncanny that's always strange to see is the horizon of an alien world. When the Venera missions to planet Venus conducted by the Soviet Union in the 1960s to 1980s took place, they had an unbelievable amount of hurdles to overcome. Unlike several of the other planets in our solar system, Venus is inhospitable. The planet's average temperature is over 400 degrees Celsius, has sulfur baked into its atmosphere, and its planetary pressure would crush a person to a pancake in seconds. So the fact that we have pictures of the world shows our own ingenuity to overcome the impossible, but also fear the different as we glimpse into a world so hostile we can only ever dream of walking there. Alien worlds are often portrayed in similar vein to that of Venus, but adjusted so that we may walk its surface, transient visitors to distant lands. Scorn shows us what a dying alien civilization would look like on a dusty and decaying world. Red rust-like sand and strange biomechanical architecture looms in the distance like a nightmare. You awaken as an entity, a nothing. And the game really only lets you solve puzzles, defend yourself and explore the environments, but every single aspect of the game is alien in origin. No language, no understanding, no communication, different sets of morals, different sets of technology. We've come to get used to associating technology with wires and screens, but Scorn shows how mechanical and the biological meld together to make machines of their own. You stumble through the world trying to figure out what things do until you get to a point where you can't progress without killing a creature. You don't even know how it fits into the puzzle, but it does. It could live to be fuel, it could live to be a key. All you know is that in a moment of horrifying realization, you have to kill it to progress. You may not want to, but your human morals are holding you back here. An alien world with its alien rules. Scorn is sometimes only really frightening because it's different. There are other games that plant you onto alien worlds, and there's serenity and beauty to be had. Subnautica shows you the paradise of an ocean world with its biomes and alien fish, prey and predators, and how it too had a civilization of its own that passed long before you walked onto the scene. And arguably it too can have moments of fear as the hostile wildlife take a hold of your ship and threaten to crush it with you inside, or as you push yourself deeper and deeper into the watery depths to find rare minerals. And then there's the brief section in Alien Isolation where you can walk onto the planet where the ship crashed. Just the murky rock formations and dust storms. Then exploring the innards of the alien ship feels the same as the dead world it sits on, with more strange architecture and barren nothingness. A recurring theme in the Alien series is Covenant and Prometheus show the same familiar, barren worlds. In those two films, there's a greater sense of spirituality, as the characters explore the tombs of aliens, with the appropriate imagery and sense of trespassing on the unknown in a very different way than simply walking on the surface of the world. Is there anything stranger than a cemetery showing the faces of gods and deities you don't know from a civilization you don't understand that already died and passed away, their strange customs and traditions all that's left of them on a world you could never go to?
Christ! We were so close! What the hell is this place now?
In Amnesia Rebirth, you glitch through the rift between worlds and take protagonist Tassie Trianon to the dead and foreboding landscape of a place simply known as the Dark World, its moon a green crescent illuminating the dim, desolate city below. Unlike the other games, you really get to explore this place. Diagrams and paintings loom on the walls next to symbols of a language you don't understand. Unidentifiable alien tools lie on desks, and Tassie gets to pick up the various historical slates and read both small notes as technicians speak of rules for things you can hardly comprehend, and they complain of the profound and harrowing changes to their governments and history which happened long before you got there. Though it's not hard to relate to their leader absorbing their life energy to maintain themselves as a heinous act, some things are universal. Their technology is strange and unfathomable, but the only thing you can really understand is that the bleak future and the quiet whimpering death that's laid out before them was something they were being steered towards and couldn't help but collide with. Alien worlds in horror games and media tend to follow the same formula, at least based on the media I had available. It's always too late, it's always too far gone, and some things, regardless of what language we speak, are universal. Alien technology is hard to understand, but so is something we can all relate to: the brain. According to clinical neurology specialists in Nevada, the human brain can contain between 10,000 to 2.5 million gigabytes of storage space. And thinking of it as an advanced, fleshy computer is the sort of thing that allows it to generate worlds like Amnesia's Dark World or the alien planet in Scorn. Our brains are the most advanced things we have at hand, and sci-fi horror is always trying to find good ways of putting it to use. Manipulating or copying the human brain is a topic that seems familiar. If it can be reduced to a series of computer files, then uploading it to a machine or into a robot is something that could be possible one day, and there's some very important questions we can ask ourselves when that inevitably arises. Mostly moral ones that'll start with, what if you could theoretically copy your brain, upload it to a computer? Does the copy you made have human rights? Is deleting it murder? Is it better than you? It'll never get sick or age or decline. What makes you special? If you can so easily copy who you are, what defines you? An existential crisis based on a thought experiment. In Signalis, there's the concept of bioresonance, which is used to change and manipulate the real world based on overwhelming mental willpower. But where the conundrum of Signalis lies is in how bioresonance was used to copy the neural patterns of the human mind into a robot and then mass-produced, where thousands of replica units were all made based on the copies of the same brains, with the flaws of the original human left pretty much intact, allowing multiple copies of the same people to be walking around as AI servants and workers. The idea itself has flaws, which are of course made significantly worse by the authoritarian nation that crafted them. They want predictable, obedient, and reliable workers, and having them grow to be individuals is frowned upon in their society. When their recreated persona degrades and starts becoming an individual through the experiences around it, they're lulled back into subordination. The human mind is always a fragile thing, and the idea of recreating the flaws of an individual and putting them together, forcing them to stay the same and nurturing the productive aspects of their personalities for better workers is horrifying. An entire subjugated race, disposed of when its usefulness is past. This is just the underlying problem in Signalis, with the bioresonance causing reality to break down as you go through the game, merging things like memories and reality together, along with damaged replicas, clones of the same people, all suffering from personality disorders as everything falls apart together. And since you're playing as a replica, it's hard to tell if the things you're fighting for are even real. Confusion, misinterpretation, and the blurring of the lines for what's real and what isn't is firmly in the realms of psychological horror, but in the situations we're looking at, it's all the work of science fiction that makes it all possible. Technology and machines allow for the kind of bizarre things witnessed that the human mind can just adjust to. Some of the robots in Soma, a game all about transplanting the human mind into a machine, didn't even realize they were robots and seemed lost and confused. It's described by Catherine Chun, someone who performed a lot of brain scans, as the human mind superimposing the human experience into the robot body, which is how the protagonist of the game, Simon Jarrett, maintains his oblivious own nature as to his current existence until he's forced to confront it. The evil within uses the guise of scientific research to allow the human consciousness to be pulled into a collective machine. Sebastian Castellanos is a detective investigating a mass homicide at a hospital when he's suddenly seemingly transported to another world of nightmarish horror and decay. It's really unclear what's happening at the time. Maybe all the things you're seeing are taking place under the hospital. Maybe you were kidnapped, drugged, but the environment changes. Maybe you got hit on your head and this is all a dream. You have minor moments of consciousness, seeing what's happening around you before you're pulled back in. All of these are just the human mind being put into something. But arguably more terrifying is the opposite. Something or someone being implanted into the human mind. The film Posessor is about just that. Possession. Tassia Voss is an assassin that completes contracts whilst never leaving the lab she works in. She still stalks her targets and notes things about them, learning their quirks and personalities, and then thanks to a technology that's not explained in the film, she then assumes control of them. It's horrifying to think about. The target's persona is just overwritten, pushed to one side as Tassia possesses them, their body hers. It's deeply violating to see her talk to people she doesn't know and assume the role of the person she inhabits, accepting the kindness and friendship of their friends, walking into their home, sleeping with their loved ones, attending functions and being them. The film presents the targets as just bodies, means to an end for Tassia to complete these contracts with. They kill who they're meant to kill and then turn the weapons onto themselves. Afterwards, she has a meeting with her boss, who checks up on her and makes sure that her identity is still present in her own mind. She repeats lines, touches familiar items, and is reinforced back into remembering who she is. There is a sadness and loss in it. Even though she does evil things for an evil company, it could slowly erase who she is. making her not unlike the bodies she controls, taking away from those horrific killings memories of the people who committed them. The film spirals out of control as Tassia struggles to control one of the bodies and she desynchronizes. They fight back and the two wrestle for control of the target body. It's dysphoric and an existential crisis you can sit back and watch fall apart. Finally, Observer does something similar. A future in which a detective uses biological implants not to control, but to explore the memories of other people, using a device known as the Dream-Eater. He connects and begins to probe their minds by walking through it literally, their jumbled memories creating bizarre landscapes of events reconstructed in abstract ways. Their privacy destroyed, all their secrets and moments they never expected to share on full display for the police to probe and research. The Mind Machine is a lockbox of possibilities, each one more upsetting and violating than the last, robbing our identities, stealing our bodies, desecrating our memories for various governments, corporation, law enforcement bodies, and as long as it can be accessed, it's free for all. The future of technology, according to Sci-Fi Horror, is bleak to say the least. It seems that everything we make will eventually come back to haunt us, and the misuse of things can only ever lead to our demise. From the moment of splitting the atom to the tentative journeys into space, there's no progression without considerable suffering. Time itself is something we can only hope never really finds itself onto the table in a science lab, lest we find a way to taint or destroy it. But sci-fi horror is tainted in itself, full of cliches of over 100 years of mad scientists doing the impossible and presenting us with reason to fear science. Cosmic horror teaches us to fear the unknown, but sci-fi horror teaches us to fear the mastery of the unknown and the price that will cost us. Time machines, genetic experiments, mind control devices, and even exploring alien worlds that already exist lead us into vistas of understanding that makes us wish we hadn't pushed so far. There's a line in the sand we're afraid to cross, for better or for worse, and sci-fi horror stands firmly on the wrong side, with its realism being both harrowing and terrifying, for the fantasy of today is the fact of tomorrow, and we could have just witnessed a series of blueprints being drawn. The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all of its contents. Someday, the piecing together of disassociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. There were a lot of things that I wanted to talk about in today's video, but this video is already a bit too long for my limited time frame. There may be a first part one day, there may not. I just wanted to say to everyone that if you made it this far, then thank you for watching, and I hope that you've enjoyed what you saw, even though it's been pretty bleak. I hope to see you all for the next video I make like this. Thank you and good night.